We'll now bring the November 6, 2024 City Council meeting to order, coming out of closed session. Is there any reportable action?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's no reportable action.
Okay. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance led by myself. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll have Pastor Samuela Tuahalamaka Beacon Hill. Is he here? Okay. I think we'll have Robin do it, if you don't mind.
Please join me in a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you that we can gather here this evening to conduct the business of the city. We thank you for our community of Norco and our rights and privileges and to participate in the democratic process, Lord. And we just pray that as we move forward into the holiday season, that we would be kind and considerate of everyone around us, and that you would keep us all healthy and safe. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
So we're going to begin Veterans and Military Families Month proclamation. Why don't we start with Maura? Are you here? I think I saw you. I believe you have a presentation, and then I'll come down and we'll give you a spiffy little certificate. Yep, right there.
And does this
Nice to see you.
Move that? It's
Yep,
great to
if
see
you're
you.
lucky, it'll work.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. I'm Moira Fisher, president of the California chapter of the Inland Empire chapter, California 30 of Blue Star Mothers. This is our past president, Veronica Wheeler. Okay. I don't know what button to push. There we are. Blue Star Mothers of America was founded as a veteran service organization in February 1942, right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and was part of a movement to provide care packages to military members who were serving overseas, and it provided assistance to families who were encountering hardships because their son or husband were working or serving overseas. Our mission statement is to support troops, veterans, wounded heroes, Gold Star families. Those are families who have lost a loved one who was on active duty. Through service to others, we form bonds and friendships, and you can see Gold Star Mother Evelyn with Kirsten. There's Gold Star Mother Vivian here with Veronica, and 2 other Gold Star mothers in our chapter. We have 6 altogether. So our first duty is for active duty. So you can see care packages here that we give. And for many, many years, we did Welcome Home at Ontario Airport during the height of the war when troops were coming in. We were there, we were there at midnight one time. We were there for many years. We also help support the Armed Services YMCA at 29 Palms. Lower ranking enlisted men are not paid well, and when you have a wife and a child, you're basically on, I don't know, it used to be called food stamps, welfare, food assistance. I mean, they are on government assistance. They're paid so badly. So this YMCA collects food, diapers, clothes, all those kinds of things so they can go in and get it for free. So we support that. And then also the Making Spirits Bright program. Again, we donate to that for Christmas presents and Christmas dinner for those low-income enlisted families. Was supporting our veterans. We volunteer at Loma Linda. We put on their Christmas party for many years. And then in 2020, we made lots and lots of masks for them. They asked for that. For 7 years, we were on the committee for the Amber Waves of Grain Beer Fest fundraiser. We just had that this past weekend down at Dos Lagos. And also in 2020, you know, American Legions, everybody had their doors closed and they weren't taking in money on rental, so we helped this particular American Legion. There's Yee in the front. She's one of our moms, and she's also an Army veteran. And every year we put on a big picnic at the Corona Veterans Center on Magnolia Avenue. We had about 100 veterans this year, and they come from all over. And another way we support our veterans and Gold Star families is placing wreaths and flags at Riverside National Cemetery, which is the largest cemetery in the country. So the Saturday before Memorial Day and Veterans Day, so that's coming up this Saturday, we place flags with hundreds and hundreds of other volunteers. And Wreaths Across America is a company that creates wreaths for all the national cemeteries. So you get people to sponsor wreaths to buy them so you can have as many as you can get purchased. So last year, Riverside National was able to have 6,000 wreaths. So that's our campaign. So I will leave these flyers here if anybody's interested in sponsoring a wreath out there. And for our Gold Star families, we put on a Mother's Day luncheon every year for Gold Star mothers in Southern California. We had 18 this year. We were at the Hidden Valley Golf Club right here in Norco. Oh, and you can show these flags. And we present Gold Star flags to a mother who asks for one. And of course, the gorgeous monument here in Norco that was our dream 9 years ago, but would not have ever been possible without the City Council and all the citizens of Norco. So this is the third year in a row we were able to have Gold Star Family Sunday, which is the last Sunday in September, up there. And it like I said, it's just amazing, and we'll never be able to thank this town enough for that memorial. Those are the 6 sons of the 6 Gold Star mothers in our chapter. You can see Luke just passed away in 2023. And we were blessed to receive the Outstanding Community, it should say, Service Award from the Western Riverside Council of Governments. That was a big surprise, and we were very happy and honored to receive that award. And that's it. That's us.
So these are some of my favorite people here. We've definitely been down some roads. I don't know if you know this, but that award, it was competing between Supervisor Spiegel and myself. We were fighting over who was going to get to sponsor you.
Oh,
She
wow.
she won.
She's in the picture.
She won.
Wow, yeah,
So,
it was a
you know
nice
what I'd like to
surprise.
do? If I could, I'd like to have the Veterans Committee come on up here. And Robin, you're a Blue Star mom. Could you come on up over here? And we're going to get a picture, and I'm going to read this proclamation. The City Council is recognizing November as National Veterans and Military Families Month with a proclamation that recognizes our local veterans and military families who have contributed to the economic, cultural, spiritual, and/or political development of our city. So, to summarize the proclamation, I'm going to read this part. National Veterans and Military Families Month is a time to acknowledge the everyday challenges that military families face as they put their lives on hold so our service members can hold the line. And the City of Norco created the George A. Ingalls Veterans Memorial Plaza and the adjoining Gold Star Families Memorial Monument as a place of permanence for our veterans and military families to gather and experience the support and gratitude of their community. And the City of Norco is a patriotic community that is committed to recognizing our past and present military service members while also recognizing the significant contributions, support, and sacrifices of our military families. Now, therefore, I, Kevin Bash, Mayor of the City of Norco, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim November 2024 as National Veterans and Military Families Month in the City of Norco, where all citizens, past, present, and future, are respected and recognized for their contributions to our community. So thank you, ladies. This is for you. What we're going to do is we're going to get a photo with these veterans over here and with the Gold Star mom. And why don't you, Karen, you're here. Why don't you come on up here? Why don't you get in there close? I'll sit there. Do we have any other veterans in the house? Get up here, sir. Come on, get up here. You're a veteran. We want to recognize you. Any other veterans? Get up here, buddy.
Come on, Jim.
Wait a minute, Karen, get up here. Get up here. Get up here. Jeez, you always support us. Come on. That's it. We've all been spiegeled. Okay. Next up, on October 24th, Riverside County had their 2024 State of the County Address, and Supervisor Karen Spiegel provided an update on our district. And there was a video that was very cool, and I thought actually the event was really neat, but the best part was Karen's segment, so see if you can identify it. But it was a lot of fun, so let's go ahead and play it.
3, 2, 1.
Did you recognize her?
Nearly 500,000 people call the 2nd District home. Encompassing 6 cities and 15 vibrant unincorporated communities, the 2nd District has experienced exciting growth and progress throughout this past year. With the completion of crucial transportation and road improvement projects, increased access to and availability of resources for students, entrepreneurs, and local businesses, the 2nd District has continued to place quality of life at the forefront.
The 2nd District offers various transportation options, including major freeways, highways, and 2 airports, one in Corona, one in Hooper Valley. It also features 2 major lakes offering boating and water activities, Canyon Lake and Lake Elsinore. Amid rapid transportation growth and increased demand for public transportation, the 2nd District benefits from a multimodal hub in Corona, servicing Metrolink and RTA, along with 2 additional Metrolink stations, one in Hooper Valley and another one in Corona. Outdoor enthusiasts can also enjoy Eastville's Master Bicycle Plan and Temesco Valley's Master Trails Plan. I am joining you today from Leaps and Bounds Pediatric Therapy in Horsetown, USA, a great example of the many nonprofit organizations supporting our community in the 2nd District. In Canyon Lake, where water is the way of life, I play a hand to help prevent harmful algae blooms through my role as a board member of the Lake Elsinore and San Jacinto Watersheds Authority, ensuring water access isn't disrupted. Thanks to the hard work of our code enforcement team, El Cerrito has seen a stronger enforcement presence, leading to a quicker response to community concerns. Special thanks to Officer Jameson Cole and the entire team. Exciting developments are coming to Home Gardens, including a new community park and a much-needed refresh of the Home Gardens Library. In Lakeland Village, 2 long-awaited projects are in progress. The Riverside County Lakeland Village Library, which broke ground in August, and the Lakeland Village Sports Park started late last year. Once completed, both will be vibrant gathering spaces for the community. Thank you, Supervisor Jeffries, for championing these projects and securing the funding. The 2nd District boasts a variety of exciting venues, offering events from sports to theater to concerts and rodeos. Something for everyone. In 2022, I was joined by Supervisor Washington and established Riverside County's Multidisciplinary Task Force, featuring experts from various county agencies. And this even won an Emmy for its innovative approach to raising awareness about the fentanyl epidemic. After years of community support and hard work, the new Mayor Berwin-Hanna Bridge has opened, making the drive on Hamner Avenue between Norco and Eastville much easier. This 1,200-foot-long bridge will serve as a vital, safe route for motorists, pedestrians, cyclists, and equestrians for years to come. Safe and reliable roads are key to any community's quality of life. That's why I've secured funding for ongoing road improvement projects in several unincorporated communities, including El Cerrito, Home Gardens, Temesco Valley, and Woodcrest. In just the first half of this year, our office hosted 4 mobile pet clinics serving 630 animals. With 13 more clinics coming in the 2nd District, we anticipate another 1,000 pets at no cost to their owners. I'm proud that the 2nd District is home to many wonderful organizations dedicated to serving young people, embodying the adage, it takes a village. Thanks to the efforts of Tanya Torno and our HWS team, I secured $1 million funding for Inspire Life Skills training, expanding their ability to serve former foster youth and break cycles of homelessness and abuse. Over 5 years ago, the 2nd District united city, county, state, and federal agencies to find collaborative solutions for the Santa Ana River bottom. In July, our Riverside County Parks team was honored as a recipient of the National Association of Counties Best in Category Award for the Santa Ana River Bottom Collaborative website. Homeowners and commercial property owners across the state face a growing crisis to higher premiums and steep reductions in insurance policies being offered. That's why I, along with Supervisor Perez, called on the Insurance Commissioner, State Legislature, and Governor to take immediate action to strengthen, stabilize California's insurance marketplace. As we move forward, we remain committed to improving the quality of life for every resident.
From critical infrastructure projects and community improvements to expanding essential services and protecting our most vulnerable, we are creating a brighter, more resilient future for Riverside County. I look forward to continuing our work together as we build upon these successes and make the 2nd District an even better place to call home. Thank you for your trust, support, and dedication to our shared vision.
Karen, can you say a few words for us?
Talking to you guys? You get my backside, sorry. One thing that he didn't show, and that's what I thought we were gonna see. Sorry it was so long, everybody, but now you know more about our district because you're part of that, and you saw that in the video. The most proud part I have is because we have Norco, Horsetown, USA, I got on a horse after not being on for 50 years. Okay? And I rode that horse.
How long?
I stayed on.
Until the quarters stop.
Okay. But in all seriousness, Norco is really the heart for me. I live in Corona, those of you know, but there's been this ongoing love relationship between Norco and Corona. The uniqueness that all of you have worked so hard to keep is what I am so proud about. It is just a community that has a vision and has kept that vision. And some of the surrounding communities haven't had that same focus. And so I'm proud to represent Norco, and thank you for having me here tonight.
Before you go, did anybody notice the hat she was wearing? It looked like somebody had sat on it. So, we got you a real cowboy hat. There you go. It's a beauty. It's the right size. Well, we talked to your staff. Put it on. I know you don't want a hat hair, but it's all right. You got a comb. That's nice. Amanda's the one that picked it out. She's the one that picked it out. Good job. So I'll tell you what, I'll stand next to you and we'll get a picture. On the boot barn. It does look like somebody sat on it. It's too bad because there was a scene where she's like riding the horse across the prairie. All right. So moving on to city council reports on regional boards. We'll begin with Robin Grunmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report at this time.
All right. Moving on to Catherine Alleman.
Nothing to report at this time.
Councilman Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On October the 16th, Councilperson Grunmeyer and I, along with all the law enforcement officers in Norco, we attended the Blue Ribbon Breakfast to honor Deputy Whittenberg for the Deputy of the Year award. They had to be about 250, 300 people there that morning, and she's the only one that got a standing ovation, but everybody was standing was waving one of these things at her. But it's a pretty good deal. And the 22nd, we had the 9th annual First Responders Appreciation Lunch up here at Nellie Weaver. And I was fortunate enough to get one of the awards for the Volunteer of the Year for the Norco Animal Rescue Team. And then RCTC just received $40.5 million for the new Meade Valley Metrolink Station Hub. RTA ridership for September was up 6.3%, and free rides were given on Election Day. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. Overall, October was an extremely busy month for all of us. But early part of the month, I attended our Chino Basin Desalter Authority Board of Directors meeting. And then last week, along with the mayor and staff, city manager, we had our annual meeting and update with Assembly Member Asali. And once again, we gave them our wish list. So that meeting went very well. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
So WRCOG, really nothing to report. Western Riverside County Conservation Authority, we had our 20th anniversary, which was really cool. Very interesting. I think I talked about that the last time. But what was really interesting was the Cal Cities annual conference. As you know, we contemplated leaving Cal Cities. And I actually sent a letter to the director and voiced some of my concerns and talked to our local rep. And I have to say that this was probably the best conference that I've attended. I came back with a whole bunch of ideas that I've already been sharing with council people. And it was just a really good conference. Billy Asali said that they're probably trying to put me someplace where they can see me. I was officially appointed as the chair of the Rev and Tax Community Services, or Rev and Tax Committee. And they're going to actually let me have my head, so I'm really excited about that. The coolest thing, though, that I got from that conference, and I've already sent it to my fellow council members, is, you know, I grew up and I always had a bedroom. I always had a place to sleep. I always had a nice desk. And I ran into some police officers over there, and they have a program where the kid goes to school in the morning, and while they're at school, police officers and firemen and community people fix up their room. They get them a bed, they paint, they fix the walls, they give them a desk. If there's two people, and when they come home, they have a place to study. So I am really into this, and I am hoping at the first of the year that we can begin to kind of implement this program. I've already got some sponsors from some of the nonprofits. And then I had this idea that maybe we can do a baseball game or a softball game between our firemen and our deputies as a fundraiser to sort of help this program. So I'm really excited about this. I feel kind of stupid and unthinking because I just didn't realize there are kids that are sleeping on floors and have no desks and they don't have things that I took for granted my whole life. So I really want to move on that. And with that, I will move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments? Had a lot.
Yes, Mayor. This is the time when persons wishing to address the presiding governmental body regarding the consent calendar or matters not on the agenda may be heard. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. The governmental body shall not discuss or act relative to any general public comment. And our first speaker is Jerry Wambacher.
Jerry, are you going to be talking about the property or something else? Something else, sir. Okay, great.
Mayor and City Council, my name is Jerry Wambacher. I live at 1269 2nd Street, basically the corner of Corona and 2nd. If you bear with me, I did 30 years of public safety service, retiring as a municipal fire chief. I also did service in the Coast Guard as a fire safety specialist. So the reason I'm sharing my resume with you is to let you know I know a little bit about fire safety. When I went to insure my house at 1269 2nd Street, I went through the military insurance company, USAA, which I've used for 30 years. And as you can see, I was denied fire insurance. They claim that 1269 2nd Street is in the wildland interface. I contacted the insurance company, sent them Google Maps with the locations of the fire hydrants around my property, and they said it wasn't up to them. It was up to the underwriters for the insurance company. Well, that got me thinking, where is the fire line? Where is the wildland interface? Does it go beyond Corona? Does it go to the freeway? Does it go to Hamner? And so what I'm asking is, first of all, bring this to your attention. It's very unusual. And secondly, ask you to have the fire chief, maybe in conjunction with the state fire marshals or the insurance officer commissioner, to establish or at least make these underwriters prove why they're calling the middle of the city the wildland interface. If I'm paying more insurance, and I had to go to a secondary insurance company where I am paying higher fire insurance, if I'm paying higher fire insurance because I was denied, other residents are likely being charged higher insurance rates. If it goes down to the business district, they're being charged higher insurance rates. And I know CAL FIRE and the Riverside County Fire Department has a very good service. I think their ISO rating is 3, which is very common for municipalities. And the water service is great. We don't have the fuel load that some of the cities up north have had that experienced terrible losses and their towns burning down. What I gather is these underwriters are trying to cover their losses for those communities by charging our communities that are not in the wildland interface higher rates to cover their losses. So I hope that this brings this matter to your attention, and I hope that the county or maybe even the state fire marshal's office can make them justify why they're calling the middle of a town the wildland interface. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jerry. Just as a matter of information for council, in talking to Lisette, they're preparing to change the tiering structure, which they waited till after the election, and we're actually, we're at a high 2. We're probably going to go to a 3, and there's a possibility that we're going to go to a 4. Already, insurance is being canceled throughout the city of Norco, and so it's quite a problem in terms of the insurance. And if we go to a 4, it's going to be, because we are actually in the middle of the #1 wildfire area in the entire United States. So, next person.
Kurt Knox.
Hi, Kurt.
Hey, good evening. I want to speak on how wonderful this council has been for little kids. Their parks, wonderful parks for little kids. Absolutely wonderful. You put your time, you put your resources into these parks for kids kindergarten through 4th grade, and I commend you on that. I commend you on all the parks for people like me, adults. Great job. You guys do a wonderful job on that. However, there's a section of kids or section of people that you're missing, and it's the teenagers that are lacking as far as their facilities are concerned. Now, we had a group of teenagers here that might be interested that we used to have a public pool at one point in time, and it it was May 11th, 2015, that somebody said, it wasn't the council people, it was one of the directors said, staffing this comes from the minutes, staffing the pool is not in our budget. They said the cost to inspect the pool was too much at that time, and a new pool would cost about $1.5 million. So at one point in time, we did have a pool for kids, high schoolers. We don't now. Also on May 11th, 2015, according to the minutes, there was a skate park subcommittee formed. And at that time, one of the commissioners said he doesn't feel the demand needs the cost of the building. Now, I'm not interested in a skate park, but maybe there might be some residents here that might want to speak, and all it takes is a card right here, and anybody can speak and say, hey, please give us something for ourselves. Please give us a skate park, please give us a pump park, please give us a pool park, please give us a splash pad, please bring back our pool. Anybody can speak, anybody, if they just get this card, and they have to listen to you. I'm sure a teacher might give extra credit if you do speak, though. I don't know. But all it takes is you guys to stand up here and say what you want, and they have to listen. They have to listen.
Oh, dude.
This is for you guys.
What have you done?
Thank you.
Yeah. You have to fill out a card.
Oh.
Yep. Grab a card. There you go. Fill out the card, and then you fill that out, and we're going to call somebody else up, and then you can talk. But fill it out like over there.
Oh, over there?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to go way over there. Just sit right there.
Our next speaker is Jeff Cahan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council, staff. I'm sure you're all aware, Monday is Veterans Day, and commission and staff have been working hard preparing for a fantastic ceremony that will take place beginning at 10 a.m. It is the 10th anniversary of the Veterans Memorial, and in conjunction with the 60th anniversary or birthday of the city of Norco, we're planning a special event. So I would invite all of you to please attend and help us to continue not just with a proclamation, but at our ceremony to celebrate the veterans in and around Norco. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And by the way, everybody who attends on that Veterans Day gets the nicest challenge coin I think we've ever produced. Thank you to Kelly Newton for designing it. It's absolutely amazing. It has the 10th anniversary, and then on the back has the 60th.
And we have one more speaker card, Mayor, Lola Hernandez.
Oh, what a surprise.
Hi, my name's Lola Hernandez, and I would like a pool park because even though I play water polo, so I'm in the pool all the time in the winter, spring, summer, you name it. And I feel like a pool would be a great opportunity because kids in Norco, we are always all over the town, either at Target, the park near the, what's it called, the barn, and we just have a lot of things to do, but I think it would be great if we have a pool, because then if we don't have a pool at our house, we could always go use a public pool if you guys do build one, and I think it would be a really good idea because I have a pool, but not all kids my age have a pool, and I want them to experience that, like how I experienced it at my house, because it's really fun. I grew up with it, and sorry, I'm a little nervous.
No, you're perfect. It's great.
I just think it would be a good idea.
All right, thank you.
Thank
you very much. So I'm going to turn this over to just Mayor Pro Tem Newton. Could you talk a little bit about the park? Well, what we're doing right now is we're creating a plan for our future parks. So those of you over in that corner, Dana, how can they access that, the parks plan? In other words, we're planning our parks. By the way, the pool, the reason we had to get rid of it, that one was because it had aged out. It was built in 1959, and the state, we couldn't make it, so the state said it was safe. How would we get it to, get them information to get to the?
Our communications
Thanks,
manager
Kelly.
has that information.
Okay, so right now we are in the middle of a Parks and Recreation needs assessment. I think that we've completed the first phase of community outreach, but there is a website that people can go to with an email address and a contact form. I believe it is www.norcoprna.com. So go to that. Your teacher probably can provide you that website as well. But the contact form is available through the end of the process, and all of that feedback will be brought to the council for consideration and more community discussion as we go through the process. So it's not too late to give your feedback on what type of recreational program you'd like to see in the next 5 to 10 years, what facility improvements, what additional amenities you would like to see, whether it's at a park or a public facility or an arena. So any ideas are welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. Splash pads, pools, all of that is actually being discussed and trying to figure out ways to fund it, man it, that kind of thing. So please fill some of those things out. Anything else, Dana?
No further public comments, Mayor.
Now closing public comments. Moving to consent calendar. Council members, is there any of the items that they feel they would like to pull? Do we have any public comments?
No public comments, Mayor.
Do I hear a motion? Motion to approve. Do I hear a second? I've got a motion, a second.
Please vote. And motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Order of presentation for discussion items, moving on to 5, staff report presentation, council questions of staff, public comment, council discussion and action. I'll call upon Attorney Burns to introduce the item. And then we'll have Brian Moncrief from Cosmont presenting the information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually going to go ahead and have Mr. Moncrief from Cosmont come on up and give a presentation on the item.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Brian Moncrief, Senior Vice President with Cosmont Companies. Happy to be with you this evening. The item before you is a recommendation from staff for approval of an agreement, an exclusive authorization to sell agreement with our firm, Cosmont Realty, in order to facilitate the listing, the marketing, and the sale of certain properties owned by the city. We have been working for the city for, I would say, over a decade now. Me personally, we've had some successful work done in terms of facilitating the sale of properties that were former redevelopment agency properties, smaller city-owned properties, complicated properties. Some of you might remember one in which was the Miraloma property off the 60 freeway, which took quite a long time to actually get sold. But you know, in those endeavors, I think what we're trying to do is help facilitate the sale of these remaining properties that the city has on its books. We went through an extensive process of getting them approved by the state, actually the California Department of Housing and Community Development, because the Surplus Land Act is obviously something that public agencies these days need to contend with. And so we went through an extensive effort of working with the state to get those approved. We have now gotten them approved and cleared. And so the next step in that process is really to put these properties out to the market and sell them. So I'm here this evening seeking approval, but also here to answer any questions regarding the process it would entail or any specific questions regarding the sale of the properties. Happy to do that. Thanks for your time.
Do we have any questions for Brian from council? Greg?
Evening.
Evening.
I know these were preliminary market brochures that you put out.
Right.
And, but I noticed that you did not have any listing price.
Correct.
And on any of these. Is this something that a broker would do comps and determine a price, or would you go out and have an appraisal done beforehand?
So I think by and large, what we typically do is have appraisals done, right? Because as a public agency, there's a standard that needs to be set in terms of fair market value. And so appraisals usually do that. Sometimes communities are okay with, broker opinion of value, which we do very often. But in a lot of cases, particularly with properties that are being sold, you have a public agency, you have a constituency, you're dealing with public money. And as a broker, we're a fiduciary, right? We're trying to get the best price for the city to generate revenue. So typically, we encourage them to look at doing an appraisal, a fair market appraisal.
Beforehand.
Before, to set a price.
And is the cost of the appraisal included in your commission fee structure?
No, we're not appraisers. We're brokers, right? Real estate
Right.
brokers, but we're not MAI appraisers. So in a lot of cases, we can recommend appraisers. Typically, cities have appraisers they've used in the past to solicit those services. So that's an additional cost, not something.
So that's an additional cost.
Correct, not done by us.
Not included in yours.
Correct, that's correct.
I'm sure we have a couple of local appraisers in town.
Yeah.
Back to my other note here. At the sale of a property, after the sale's been completed, are there any, since you've gone through the Surplus Land Act and we've been released by the state, is there any further reporting that needs to be done to the state after the disposition of the property?
No, the properties in this case fell under an exemption under the state statute. So going through that process, getting HCD's letter of approval was really kind of giving us the authority to move forward and sell the properties. There's nothing contingent on, related to the sale of the property. There's no covenant that needs to be placed on the property.
No further reporting?
No further reporting, right? They've given us the green light to move forward.
Okay. That's all the questions I have at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor?
Yeah.
When you get through with all your stuff, how long did it take to get an appraisal before you put it on, before it can be on the market? Because I know there's several people interested in some of these properties.
Yeah, understood. I think, depending on how busy the local appraisers might be, it's taking anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to get appraisals done. You might have an appraiser that's local that may be able to do it in a quicker fashion and maybe for a cheaper price. But I think, what we're finding is that's a typical range it takes to get those done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Robin? Catherine? Do we have any public comments?
Yes, Mayor. The first one is Jerry Wambacher.
Brian? We meet again, sir.
Mayor and council members, I'm still Jerry Wambacher, and I still live at 1269 2nd Street. I think I'm the catalyst for this item before you. I bought my home in December, and the listing agent was the daughter of the man that lived there previously. She'd actually grown up in the house. She made it clear that beyond the fence line, the corner and second corner, was the city's property. However, I was told it was under lease by her father, and he operated a nursery there, which explained the gates between my property and the city's property and the water lines running from my property into the city's property so he could operate as a nursery. So I authorized my local realtor, Kelly Henley, to contact the city manager's office and let them know I wanted to lease the property, take over the lease. Was told by the city manager, we didn't lease the property. Furthermore, she didn't even know she owned the property or that the city owned the property. Upon further research, got back to us and said, we actually own 5 in town that are going to be declared surplus properties. I have an email chain dating back to December, where he contacted the city manager's office monthly asking to purchase the property. And the terms of the purchase was, give me the appraised value, I'll pay the realtor's fees, I'll take it with no conditions or inspections, and I'll have it cleared in 30 days, the fence is repaired, and in 60 days, I'll have a horse arena, round pens, and pastures installed. If you drive by my house right now, you'll see all kinds of corral panels stacked up against the fence. Those are the horse arenas and panels that I moved here when I sold my home in San Dimas and my home in Las Vegas. We kept getting told, well, there's a process. Okay. First, it had to be declared surplus. Then it had to go through the state. I still don't know what the appraised value is. It's not in the report. And furthermore, the report doesn't say anything about people making offers. Local residents making offers using local realtors to purchase city property. My vision of this piece of land is when you come over 2nd Street, headed to the high school, and cross the crest at the windmill, you go down into the valley where Corona is. First thing you see is that lot. I want you to see horse property. I want my quarter horses to be seen, wandering around in the pastures or ridden in the arena. You'd be shocked at the string of cars going to the high school from out of town to see a home game. And all those people don't see Horsetown, USA.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kurt Knox.
Hello.
Kurt.
I also had a question about that same property. I feel like if we had a local realtor would understand that the property lines in old Norco are quite different than the property lines today. I'm shocked. I was shocked when I saw that posting that the overhead view of that property does not line up with the parcel map. The parcel map says it's 1,900 square feet, but if you go to that overhead view, it's clearly not, because there's a road that eats into about 1/3 of that property. Now, it could be a simple error, but having somebody sell it as a 19,000 square foot property, when you go there and it's not, that's dishonest. Now, I'm sure this realtor company, I can only think of one of two things. The realtor company, because they posted both the parcel and the overhead view right next to each other. Either this realtor company was too busy to notice that there was a difference, or they didn't care. Now, I tend to think that good of people, I think they do care, but I just do think they're too busy to notice that difference. If we had a local realtor, they would understand that that property is not 1,900 square foot because of that road. I think having a local realtor deal with local properties, giving the local money to local citizens would be a better choice. I don't know if it's a legal thing, but I'm all in favor of using local realtors. And my question is, before that property sold, either the parcel needs to be corrected, or the advertisement about it 1,900 square foot needs to be corrected, because those two don't match up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, brief comment. In fairness, the flyers, advertisements included in the staff report were drafts. They weren't final. They weren't meant to be distributed as part of the sale. It was just a sample. It was just a draft sample. We should have put drafts on them. So in fairness to Cosmot's team, those were not final.
It says draft.
They were draft.
Our next speaker is Matt, I'm sorry, is it Blackham? Blackburn, sorry.
Hi, Matt.
How are you?
Good, Matt.
Good. Good evening. My name is Matt Blackburn. I'm a resident of Norco, and to be fully transparent, one of the lots is neighboring property to two investment properties that I have. And I think I beat Jerry to the punch. I started asking about that lot in 2022 and reaching out to the city manager and waiting for this process to go through. I have a few questions after I read the staff report and understanding that Cosmont was previously hired to get clearance to sell these surplus lots. The first paragraph in the testimony today says that that clearance has been given and that there's no additional work needed to be done in order for these lots to be sold, which to my knowledge is what they were hired to do under that previous agreement. So my concerns tonight are, I don't see anywhere in the staff report that there was a competitive RFP process that went out to make sure that the city's getting the best deal to sell these lots, number one. When I read the agreement in the staff report, it's concerning to me that the entire agreement, every single paragraph talks about their commission, but nothing in it talks about what the city gets, what protections are in there for the city, what the prices of the properties are going to be, what outs the city has. It just over and over reaffirms that their commission is 6% or $25,000, and one way or another, they're going to get it. Let's see, I don't see anywhere that there's any extra work that's done. So why do they need $25,000? If we've already paid them to get the clearance, they've already got the clearance, why wouldn't it just sell at a typical real estate commission? Maybe it's because nobody bid and they thought it was a shoo-in and it's a good deal, but according to my calculations, when I know the value or what I think to be the value of these lots, it looks like they're getting somewhere between 15 and 20% commission to sell these lots that they've already been paid for to get the clearance. Why would we be doing that? Why would we do that? Again, I know maybe the flyers are drafts, but if someone's going to come in and ask for 15 or 20% commission, shouldn't they have done their research and known that the property on 2nd Street isn't matching up with the parcel? Shouldn't that have already been addressed? If you're that professional that you need that big of a commission, why would simple errors like that make it through? It just seems like a money grab to me, to be honest with you. I've been involved in other deals that have been surplus land in other cities and jurisdictions. I've always negotiated those deals directly with the city manager, city attorney. If all the clearances have been given, I think it's in the city's best interest to list these properties for sale. List them for 30, 60, 90, 120 days, whatever we think is fair to get the word out. But let local residents that have already shown interest, if they're willing to pay the fair market value or more, let those deals come to the city manager, city attorney. Let's save $100,000. These are not complicated sales because the work's been done. They're simple lots. They have a lot of issues. They're not going to be easy to permit, but let's do the right thing by the residents and save $100,000, and let's do it in-house and not waste our money. So I hope you'll consider that, and I hope you won't vote on this tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Our next speaker is Craig Bennett.
Mr. Mayor, again, same comment, and all fair comments, just to make sure that the record's straight. They didn't even, Cosmont didn't even authorize these to go into the staff report. They just got attached into the staff report, so just make sure that that point is clear.
Evening.
Evening, Council. My name is Craig Bennett. Talking also the same property, 2nd and Corona Avenue. I am the corner house, the dark gray house that everybody seems to know about driving over to the high school. I kind of have a vested interest in that property as well. Jerry's my new neighbor. He's done an amazing job cleaning up his property. That property was completely run down when he moved in, completely transformed that property, and that's making that corner look very nice. So the only people that have ever been over there is Edison to cut the trees that are wrapped around the telephone pole for power lines, and coyotes that seem to taunt my dog. But the $25,000 commission is pretty crazy when you have somebody that's literally coming to you saying, I'll buy this from you guys. He wants to put a horse corral. It's going to be beautiful. Since I've read the code and I've done so much stuff in Norco trying to build my own building and everything like that, I do know that trying to build that 19,000 square foot parcel is actually closer to about 9,000 square foot. Trying to build that doesn't even meet your guys' zoning requirements. A1 zone is required to be 21,000 square foot minimum, 150 foot deep, 80 foot wide. It doesn't meet any of those requirements. So then it would have to go R1 residential zoned. It's not even meeting that requirement because that's minimum 10,000 zone. So you're into a different zoning if that property were to be sold something else. And I just don't want to see low-income housing or some sort of residential or skyscraper going up there, some tall, skinny building or something. So If there's some other opportunity that we could do something there, and then still on a lot that's that size, you know, when you're talking $20,000 commission, that's pretty easy money for you guys to use somewhere else. You're thinking, if you guys think that 6% on that, like he was saying, that's about 20-30%. 6% of that would be, you'd have to sell that thing for like 400 or 350, 400,000, something like that, in order to hit your 6% on the 20,000. So, anyways, my comment here is let the residents, let the local neighbors. I think Jerry's lot was on that parcel map. I don't even know if that parcel map's correct, but that was the same cut that Second Street cut from there, plus that water drainage canal cut the other side. So that property is actually a perfect equilateral triangle. And I think Jerry's property is only like 0.3 of an acre. So if he was able to merge his two lots together and make that one parcel, put his horse corral, it would actually meet the true agricultural zone for an A1 zone. So I think this is just kind of a win-win to give the neighbor the opportunity to buy that lot before you guys kind of sell it off to everybody else. But anyways, that's all I had. So thank you.
Thank you.
There's no further comments, Mayor.
Closing public comments, bringing it back to council for discussion and action. Anybody? Greg?
Sure, a couple of things. Alma, as the last speaker was saying, I would disagree, but you correct me. I would still take that lot at Second Corona as an A1 non-conforming.
That's correct.
Right. So
Correct. Yeah, it would stay in one.
it still could be standalone.
Yes, as an A1 zone property.
Okay. So my concern on this is going over the report, and I think it would concern to some of the speakers that for the market in Norco, and what I've been able to research, the typical residential commission is 4%, and less depending on the competitive nature of that property. Okay, 6% is, I think maybe in the commercial world would be a little more acceptable, but or $25,000 or greater is just, that's a non-starter for me. So on these properties, now we have a few other properties that I've talked to the city manager about that we're still waiting to be released by the state, but these ones here are the most usable. A few years ago, Councilmember Grunmeyer and I met with Habitat from Humanity on the Acacia property to look at trying to donate that to that group or try to put some type of veterans housing, something, right? And that lot is a little difficult, to say the least. That one I could see being marketed with a local broker, if this is all allowable. But the other one, Second and Corona, we have an interested buyer in hand. The property on Sierra Avenue in Smokewood, I know of 2 folks right now that are interested in that property. And the property at Park Ridge and 2nd Street, obviously there's one, but there's, at one point there were 2 people interested in that property. Why would we even need to list it? Why couldn't we just put up for sale by owner sign and let them come to the door and just work it out legally? And I'm kind of looking at you for some direction on that, Colin.
Well, legally, I think we would want to have some broker represent us in the transaction. There's some things you need a broker license to do. We're a corporation, not really an individual person owning properties. So there's some differences in how the person, the corporation, can act and whether they need some representation. But the selection of the broker is council's choice.
Okay. And my concern on this is that can you selectively say we'd like to have it like an RFP from local brokers?
You can give a local preference if it's in our municipal code.
Okay.
And it is. So, yeah, we can give a local preference. We
Right.
couldn't say only local brokers, but we can give a preference.
And determine a basis on like commission structure and things like that. And I'm trying to qualify it as brokers, not agents, okay? I don't want us to be inundated with 100 real estate agents saying, I want the listing. I think it's more prudent to say we'd want to go through a broker or an agent with a broker's license. But then it would also be up to us to look at the cost and determine the selling price through an appraisal. Correct?
Yes, or some kind of a competitive process.
Okay.
You have to make sure that we're not giving out a gift of public funds.
Sure.
You usually do that with an appraisal, but if you have a number of people who are submitting bids and you have a pretty good argument
Right.
what the market price is, you can use that also.
Well, I would think the appraisal or appraiser market is a little less limited compared to the number of real estate agents out there. I don't know. I think this would, some approach like that. You know, I ran my own numbers on the Sierra property, and I know prices on dirt right now are kind of all over the board, but there's no way I'm going to support. I understand Cosmot's a first-class firm, but your rates are too high for this market. That's all I have right now.
You want to respond?
Sure. I understand the concern and hear you loud and clear. I think, you know, a lot of that language in our draft agreement is what it is. It's just a draft agreement, right? It's subject to the city's review and approval of specific terms. We've always been flexible. We've been in this business almost 40 years, working with over 100 public agencies across the state. So this is not new territory for us. And if there's some concern over price or terms, we're always amenable to making adjustments to accommodate. So I don't think there's any issue with that.
I guess my question would be that, why didn't you give us your best number going in?
Well,
I mean, you would know what the market is.
Yes. We've sold property in Norco. Like I said, we've worked in the city of Norco for over 10 years, maybe more. So we understand where the market is. We also understand that we're in a complex environment, right, with where commission rates are going, right? And you have a lot of lawsuits out there concerning sharing commissions with buyers, brokers, and things like that. I don't think by any means local brokers are locked out of this process, right? The reason we ask for a 6% commission is because typically we share 50% of it with a local broker, right? That's bringing a buyer to the table. So local broker gets 50%, we get 50%, and we get a deal done, right? And it goes to someone who, you know, is going to do something productive with the property that aligns with the city's goals and objectives. So that's the only reason the rate is what it, the 25,000, I don't think we're really concerned about that. I don't think that's something we would, you know, we would balk at in terms of taking that out of the agreement. But 6% commission, I think, is something we do because we're always sharing commissions. We're always representing the public side of these deals. And in a lot of cases, you know, while realtors and brokers are allowed to double end deals and take both sides of the commission, we typically don't for various reasons, you know. Perception is one, but also it's just a matter of practice, right? We're representing public agencies. It's dealing with public dollars. We want to make sure we're a good fiduciary to you guys and to make sure you guys get a price that you're happy with and the community is happy with ultimately.
But I'm a little concerned about the comment you made. It's 6% or $25,000,
Right.
which is ever greater.
Correct,
And
but what I'm saying is that's standard in our agreements, but it's something that we've taken out, we can take out in this case, so that it's a straight commission deal where we're sharing a portion of that commission with a local broker, right? Or someone who's bringing
let's take
a
an
buyer.
example. Let's say Sierra Avenue, 6,100 square foot. I'd be surprised if we got it, but at $20 a foot, $165,000, you'd get a commission of less than $10,000
Right.
at 6%,
Correct.
okay?
And we'd be sharing a portion of that.
But you would get 25,000.
Well, in this case, what I'm saying is that we're amenable to taking that out
Right.
of the agreement. But in a lot of cases, we're doing a lot of work for some of these properties that are smaller or complex and so,
Well, let me, I don't mean to argue with you on this, but I'm going to that. Let's go back to that, on that commission. Let's say the commission's $10,000 on that one specific lot, right? You're going to split, let's say 50-50, right? If it was
Correct.
just a straight 6%.
Correct.
Right, you get 5, they get 5.
Yeah, and sometimes
Where-
cities stipulate that.
Okay, so now you got this $25,000 ticket up there, right? You split that 12,005 each way, or would they just get the 3%? They just get the 5,000?
No,
And you put the 20?
No. Any commission we would earn would be split 50-50. So total, whatever
So
the
on the
total gross commission.
25,000, greater 25,000,
Correct. Correct.
if
Whatever
you
the
were to
commission
split
ends
that,
up being.
each of you get 12,000.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Robin?
Would Cosmot be agreeable to lowering the commission percentage and just having a commission percentage? Because I heard you say you would take the $25,000 off the table, right? Or
Yeah,
out of the contract.
right. In terms of Councilmember Newton's comment, yeah, I think that, what we're saying is that if the city is not agreeable to that, even though we're splitting that 50-50, then we would be open to, talking about just a straight commission amount.
And are you willing to come down from the 6%?
We're willing to negotiate that, yeah. I don't think we have any issue with that. Like I said, we've been a good partner with the city for, for me personally, over 10 years, but for our firm, probably 20 years. We've done various assignments, economic development, real estate, public finance, and others. So you guys are, a very good client for us, and we've got a good relationship with the city for a number of years, so I don't see that as an issue.
So I'm going to guess, and I'll look at Lizette and Colin, those negotiations aren't going to take place right now. So would this, as far as handling this particular item, what would that look like if we wanted to be able to have staff go back and potentially negotiate a lower commission rate with them? Or would we have to open it up, like Councilmember Newton said earlier, where we kind of open it up for other folks to come to the table? Or is that just based on direction given to staff by council?
Based on direction given to staff.
Okay, all right.
This isn't a public works contract where we'd have to go back out to a competitive bid or something of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so just first I want to thank you because you took us through the Surplus Land Act, which is why I know we've heard from residents about why this has taken so long. The state has added extra laws and extra steps. We cannot just sell the land as we would want to, right? We have to go through all of these steps and put it out to affordable housing developers and see if there's any takers and get clearance. And so we have to check all those boxes to make sure that we're protecting everything that we have in terms of the state. So thank you for doing that. And I know, oftentimes, we get the boilerplate, contracts that come in. So I appreciate, your firm willing to work with us. So then can we approve? So the what is on here is to approve the exclusive authorization with negotiations to happen by our city manager and city attorney to approve at a later time when we have a lower rate.
You can, but for us to, if council's going to approve it and it's going to be subject to a lower rate, I think there should be some discretion, some discretionary guideposts. So probably best for council to say what rate council would prefer, and then see if, I got a hunch we might be able to do that here, or.
Okay, so to do it here then, okay.
Or just instruct staff to sharpen the pencil and see what we can bring back at the next meeting.
Okay, what's the council's, is there a pleasure?
So I have a question. Why don't we just give it to a local broker? And I understand, I've worked with you for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then if we do decide to stay with your firm, what kind of work, if you share that with a local broker, what kind of work will be expected of that local broker? Are we now making it such that they'll get almost nothing? Because the 25,000, obviously that's gone. But
Yeah, assuming
is
that's gone.
is it better that we keep it at 6 so that the local broker gets some money? And then the question is, why not go with a local broker since we have so many willing buyers? You know, I'm actually asking you, what would you advise us to do?
Well, look, I think, it's the city's prerogative on what they want to do in terms of hiring a local broker. We've partnered with local brokers, co-brokered things with local brokers. We've done it independently of local brokers. We've worked with them on the buyer side. So I think, there could be any number of scenarios that may work out for the city in terms of selling this property. But I don't think I can tell you standing here that, it's in your best interest to, make a decision one way or another, or to tell you to make a decision one way or another on it. I think we're a firm that works with a lot of public agencies. There are nuances to the sale of public agency property, which we're very familiar with. Like I mentioned earlier, I think, right now we're working with over 30 public agencies that are dealing with Surplus Land Act real estate transactions like this across the state, right? And that would include probably 60 some odd properties. So this is our business. We live in this every single day. So in terms of going out to an RFP, we're not shy about saying we're okay with competing. The way that the Surplus Land Act deals are structured in terms of the state requirements is that if you think about the process itself, it's almost a real estate brokerage tasks and activities, right? If you think about being a licensed broker and going through the process of the Surplus Land Act, you're putting properties out to bid, you're representing the city in a somewhat brokerage capacity, and so, usually what tends to happen is once we get through that process, right, we're aiding the city because we're now familiar with the properties, we're now going out to the market to look for a buyer for, something as small as 5,000 square feet or as big as 40 acres and everywhere in between. So, like I said at the beginning, I think it's the city's prerogative on whether or not they want to go through that process. We're not averse to competing in a process because, we've worked with the city for a number of years. We're very familiar with this area. And like I said, we've sold property for the city in the past very successfully. Complicated, very easy, redevelopment, old redevelopment deals that really had some entanglements in terms of trying to get property through the State Department of Finance and ultimately sold, and to the Countywide Oversight Board to get approval of those sales. And now dealing with the California Department of Housing and Community Development, right? And so when you're talking about the sale of public agency assets, there are specific requirements, fair market value, and others that cities are going to have to think through as they look to sell or lease property or acquire property in this day and age. And, we help cities navigate through those issues ultimately. And so when you're dealing with the sale of these 3 or 4 properties, right, depending on what happens with adjacent buyers and others, you have to think about the treatment of the proceeds when the proceeds are ultimately generated, right, and what you're supposed to do with those in accordance with state law. And, these are things we're very familiar with. So it's a natural fit for us to assist an agency in a city to go through whatever requirements need to be complied with, as well as getting an ultimate sale done. So like I said, we're very open to, arrangements that involve co-brokering with local brokers because of that intimate knowledge we have about public agencies.
Do you need a local broker?
What was that?
Do you need a local broker?
No, I don't think we would need a local broker.
So would you do it for 3%?
Would we do it for 3% and then?
In other words, if there's no local broker to share with, you would get 3% if you did the whole process.
Yeah, in certain circumstances, if we're selling a piece of property and we're the only broker in the transaction, we'll do it for a lower commission amount because that just makes sense. If there is a broker on the buyer side, then, we're splitting hairs at, let's just say $10,000, right? You want to be able to entice a local broker or a broker that's representing a buyer to come and bring a buyer, right? So that's why we ask for 6% versus just a straight 3% or.
So Colin, I guess my question is that we have people standing here with money in hand. We'd have to get it appraised, obviously.
Sure.
And would we be able then to, would we have to do an RFP, or could we just sell it like directly if there's one buyer? Would we be able to sell it just boom? Or do we have to put it out or do we have to put it out to bid, not to bid, but to public
List it.
sale?
If we have a basis for saying we're getting a competitive price, then we can just sell it.
If we have an appraisal, right? Because we just have to establish that it's a fair price.
I don't think it has to be an official appraisal. But that is,
We have
that
to
is
check the
usually-
boxes for a fair price, whatever that looks like, right? Then we could
Correct.
sell it to, say, we have someone here who said, it's next door to my house, I'm gonna put a horse corral. We don't have to then list it and entertain all of these offers, as long as we as a public agency have made a fair price.
Yes.
So can we say for 3%, simply do the process he just described? Is that possible?
If it's direct to the buyer, right? Or are we talking about a local broker?
Well,
Direct to the
I mean,
buyer.
I,
Yeah.
the truth
Yeah,
is,
we have two buyers right here.
I don't see why,
and I mean, I respect, the thing is, I do understand your expertise. There
Yeah.
is an expertise to selling public land,
yeah.
and I understand that. I would
Yeah.
imagine there probably is somebody that, in town, that could probably do it, but I can also tell that I've got buyers with bated breath sitting right behind you.
Understood.
And so
Yeah.
rather than going out and trying to find another person that has your expertise for this kind of a sale, would you do it for 3% or would you do it for 2%? I like 2%.
Well, now we're negotiating, but I
Well,
mean.
no, we are negotiating.
Yeah, I know.
He
I
said
understand that.
The attorney said we could do it, so.
Yeah.
So would you do it for 2%? And then, I mean, he can come back at me.
Yeah, look, I think 3%'s fair. I think we would do it for 3%.
And then what
Like
would
I said, if
happen,
we're
then
the
what
only
would
broker in the
process be?
transaction.
What would the process be exactly?
We could, if the council approves the 3%, we could negotiate, we could amend the contract to make it reflect whatever the council.
But then how would we then get it to the guy sitting in the chairs behind him? Would
You
we
want to
just-
establish fair market value, whatever that.
So you'd have to get that, and
Yeah.
then, once that's done, then we could actually entertain offers.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Well, under discussion, anybody got any comments, or? Yeah, please, Berwin. I like 2%.
I've looked at that a couple of times, and I don't see that that's even 19,000 square feet. Jerry, have you measured it, or? Because I've seen that place for years. You know, they used to stack, when they'd have a storm and cut the trees, it was always stacked up with trees over there, and it's got that flood control thing in there. But just looking at it, I'd have a hard time figuring that it was 19,000 square feet. Yeah.
I did measure it on Google Maps, and you're looking about 9,000 square feet. But it's a triangle. It's hard to see the property line because of the trees, though.
Yeah, even standing out in the street looking at it there, it's hard to see everything, but the 9,000
Let's call it 9 to 10,000, yeah.
versus 19, that's a hell of a mistake somebody made on the,
Second Street's got to be a line, and then the flood control cut the other side.
yeah, the flood control took out a good chunk of it there.
So it actually turned it into like a perfect triangle, so,
Okay, is there anything, that you can recheck that, Alma, or the?
Mr. Mayor, if I,
Maybe the appraisal a little.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question? So, because it was brought up, there are a couple items with a couple of the properties that need to be addressed before we can sell them. One being the corner property at Second and Corona. We do need to dedicate a portion of the parcel to the city for the public right-of-way. Currently, it is the shape you've seen. It's basically a square for the most part, and it extends into the street. Because it was already the city's property, they never in the past had dedicated the portion that's for specifically public right-of-way. That needs to be done first so that we can get the approximate size. That dedication is about 0.07 acres initially that we've looked at, but we have to go through a formal process to dedicate that to us to get now and then separate those two parcels so that they're separate before we can sell it, so that we can get you the accurate square footage before you sell it. And then the property on Sierra also has a storm drain pipe going through it. And so it needs to have a 10-foot dedication on that property that needs to be established to Norco before we sell it. such that it puts a limitation on whoever buys it, how they use it, that they don't put any permanent infrastructure over that. And that extends from basically east, from the street to the back of the property along the south end of that parcel. So we want to make sure we identify that too in the process. The
So
reason
do
that's
you do
becoming
that, or does he?
We would do that because it's city property. And the reason it's coming up as far as at this point is that Public Works Engineering wasn't aware we were trying to sell these properties to look at it to see if there's any issues. So we looked at the ones with the staff report that are there. I don't know what other ones are being considered. So we can look at those too to figure out if there's any other items that we need to adjust before the public could go out to sale.
Erwin, you done? Anything else? Greg?
Chad, so what surprises are you aware of on Park Ridge and Second and Acacia?
We looked at that, and there's nothing in either of those properties that we could identify. But again, we'll double check them. But the two that we found right away was the other two that I just mentioned.
Okay. So, Mayor, I mean, one of my concerns on this is that we have local brokers, local agents that participate and contribute a lot to the city. And in one sense, I believe that would be fair and reasonable to give them a fair shot at this also, just for their involvement in it. I appreciate your comments on what you were just saying to the mayor, but I think it kind of goes back to, you know, my first question is that these properties are released by the state, right?
Yeah.
They can be sold. There's no more follow-up. So,
The only caveat is the treatment of the proceeds. Some of those, one in particular.
right,
Yeah.
which our city manager has addressed in our report.
I like the Acacia property. That one is successor agency.
Right. So, I think we know what to do with money if we receive it, right? So, and is there, but going back to our original contract with you on the surplus properties, do you still owe us information on a couple of lots under that purchase order?
There's only one in particular. It's a former redevelopment agency piece of property that is off of Lonesome Dove Court. That one is not, it's a government use property, but it just never got dealt with the State Department of Finance that I'm
Okay.
aware of. It needs to be dealt with.
And I may bounce back to Lisette. Our previous city manager, and I'd brought this up to her before, there's two other small little properties on Valley View, Second and Valley View and the end of Valley View. And my impression with the previous city manager was that was part of your deal and was to be included in this surplus process.
In the initial agreement, there were 7 properties, so the other 2, I believe they're still going through the process.
Well, what we were told at the time was to hold off on 2 of those, right? So the ones we dealt with immediately were the ones we knew were exempt, and we got them through the state's process. So those are the 4 that are in your staff report this evening. There's one, a 5th, that we were talking about on Lonesome Dove that needs to be dealt with through the State Department of Finance.
And
The other
we're
2.
still working on that one?
So yeah, that's in process. Yeah, we're working with Lisette to get that done. There'll be an action that needs to come back to this council.
This is still under the original purchase agreement.
The original, yeah, correct.
And the 2 other properties on Valley View, is that included in that?
They're in the agreement, but I think at the time, the previous city manager had said to hold off on those for the time being.
I won't ask why, because those were priorities. So are you back working on those? Or do you need to be directed
Need to
by
be
the city
directed,
manager?
correct, to continue.
Okay.
So, what is the pleasure of the council? Continue with Cosmot or take the time to go out to bid with the local brokers?
We have folks who are here, who are ready. We have a specialist who already took us through the process, which is why they're here asking to continue the partnership. We have a couple legal pieces on a couple of the properties that we need to get taken care of. Can we do that in conjunction with getting an appraisal, or we have to do this first and then the appraisal?
They can happen in conjunction.
Okay, and then we can immediately work to sell with the buyers that we have. So given that Cosmot is willing to negotiate their rate, Mayor Bash is suggesting 2%. Would you like to respond? I can make a motion right now.
I don't think it would be fair for me to agree to 2%.
3%, then I get it.
3% if there's no broker. Can we put in there if there is a local broker that comes with the buyer that it would be 6? So that way,
We can write it that way. We've done
Why
that in
would a
the
local
past.
broker, well,
if somebody gets, just, I want to be fair, if there's
If a
if
bu-
someone's bringing their broker to the table, or do we say, no, you can't have your broker?
thus far, it
We say
doesn't look
that?
like there's another broker
Depends on how they
coming in,
get paid
so-
now. You know, the
Yeah,
buyers.
I know it's all changed since I bought property, so.
It has all changed, yeah.
I suppose if, I mean, the thing is, I'm not hearing them talk about brokers, so I guess I'd be fine with,
Okay, so then let's just start there, and if they don't sell according to what we have in that, then we can come back, it'll come back. Okay, so I will move to approve the exclusive authorization to sell agreement with Cosmot Realty to facilitate the listing, marketing, and sale of 4 surplus land properties that are located at the following APN numbers in the agenda, with an amendment, with changes to the contract to eliminate the $25,000 minimum and change the rate to 2%, as Cosmot is the only broker on the deal.
2%.
Did I say 2? Yeah. What did I say? 3, sorry, 3. I was trying still. See, Kevin, come on, I'm trying for you. 3%, so moved.
Second.
Please vote. Councilmember Hannah? And Councilmember Newton? Oh, you're contemplating. Okay. Councilmember Hannah, I'm sorry, I didn't get your vote. Which button did you push? Oh, there you go. Motion passes with Councilman, or Mayor Pro Tem Newton voting no.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, while we're on the lot not purchasing.
I can't take any more comments, I'm sorry, I apologize.
There's a 40-foot dead pine tree on the corner of the lot. There's already been a limb that fell off. There's school children that gather in that area.
Do me a favor, talk to Amanda right there, right now. Get over there.
I can follow directions.
All right. Moving on to 5B. Discussion regarding increasing City of Norco's public noticing radius requirements for entitlement applications. Alma? No, Acuna, I'm sorry. I apologize, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City
Good
Council. This is a discussion on the public radius noticing requirements and changes to it. So a quick background, the state law does require notification of surrounding property owners within 300 feet for entitlement applications that require a public hearing. Now, the city of Norco mirrors that requirement, except our requirement adds this additional stipulation that at least 25 properties are notified. On a September meeting, the City Council directed staff to investigate increasing the city's radius notification requirements, and this is really to ensure that the properties affected by a development are notified, especially, particularly when a development is at the mouth of a cul-de-sac and, like, for example, a property owner is at the end of a cul-de-sac. So just to make sure that the entire cul-de-sac is notified. The City Council then recommended increasing the radius requirement to 500 feet with a minimum of 40 properties captured. Now, as staff has reviewed multiple entitlement applications, we would like to share an observation with the City Council in terms of this minimum property requirement. So if I'm using the current city requirement of 300 feet and a minimum of 25 properties are required to be captured, so for example, I pick a random property in the city here. It's 300 feet and you don't meet the 25. So I can either increase it to 408 that meets the city requirement, or I can also increase it to 450. Both these radius, it's either 408 or anywhere between 408 to 450 or even 500. The applicant has technically, the applicant can increase the radius from the minimum 25 to as much as they like, as long as it meets the city requirement. And the point here is that staff has reviewed a lot of applications and the radius sizes are wildly different because our requirement only requires a minimum and not a maximum. So with that said, staff is requesting that the City Council also consider this alternate, which is requiring a 600-foot radius with no minimum requirement. For the reasons that a 600-foot radius typically captures 50 to 55 properties, which captures the intent of the previous City Council recommendation of 500 feet, and that 500 feet captures about 40 properties. It also standardizes the radius map requirement, which eliminates this radius range that the applicant provides us. And staff has also kind of done a very quick research here. A typical cul-de-sac in Norco is about 500 feet, and a 600-foot radius gives kind of a buffer for longer cul-de-sacs or cul-de-sacs that are L-shaped, like the one that you see below here. These are the application types that require radius maps. The one on your left are the application types that require a public hearing, and the one on the right are usually discussion items that are still brought forward by the Planning Commission. The thing in red here, which is the site plan review, as a matter of practice, staff does notify the property owners within 300 feet of site plan review applications, because we do recognize that some site plan applications would have the same impact as any of these applications that you see here. However, that is not codified, so we're just doing that out of good practice, but it's not anywhere in our code to formally require it. So staff is requesting that the City Council consider adding that to our code for a future zone code amendment. Staff is recommending that the City Council direct staff to draft a zone code amendment incorporating one of the options below. A is increasing the radius to 500 feet, minimum 40 properties. B is increasing the radius to 600 feet with no minimum. C is increasing the radius to 500 feet, minimum 40, and applying these requirements for site plan review applications. D, increasing the radius to 600 feet, no minimum, and apply these requirements to site plan applications. Or E, which is our other, any alternative provision that is not discussed above. That concludes my presentation, and staff is ready to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Catherine?
So I heard we had suggested 500, and then I heard that the recommendation was 600. So out of these, am I hearing correctly, staff's recommendation is really D?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Robin? Greg?
Good evening. Where is the point that you start the radius from on a subject property?
The radius size is usually derived from the exterior boundaries of a subject property. So it's from the property lines.
Okay. What I'm concerned about is that you're showing some typical properties. Let's say it's a larger property, okay? Is the radius start on, like, can you start it on like northeast corner and go out, or do you have to hit all the corners? Where's your starting point on a larger property?
It is the exterior, the outermost exterior corners of a property. So if it's a large property, it's from the four corners.
Okay. So basically then 4 radius circles.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And how would that be noted in this proposed amendment? Like, you'd have,
That's pretty,
you
that's
just-
standard practice.
it's pretty well
Yeah, it's standard. 'Cause-
SOP?
Yeah, that's
right?
standard, yes, because that's in doing radius maps
Okay.
years before when I was an assistant planner. That's standard practice. That's the way you just take it from all the corners and go out. That's where you create your radius.
And do we provide that, or does the applicant do the radius map and the stickers and the, so we're not doing that anymore?
Well, I'll answer that question.
Sure.
So for large developments where we have a developer coming in,
Right.
they have to provide the radius.
That's on their
Yes.
dime.
So generally speaking, when we have a resident coming in, say, to do a variance,
Right.
or they're doing accessory building, we do the radius maps for them.
Okay.
So that's been pretty standard since I can remember.
And we do the mailings then for them?
That's
We do all the little,
That's
we
correct.
type up all the stickers for them and all of that?
Yeah, yeah, and it's as far as typing in, our programs allow us, they create the labels and we just stick the paper in it. It's, But
Well,
that's,
I've
yeah.
done it.
Yes.
So I know. Just,
So, But anyways, but yes, for our residents, we at least,
okay. That's all I have right now. Thanks.
Berwin?
Yeah, if you increase that to a mile, would that cut our chances down of not hearing any loud music?
That is certainly possible.
Excellent comment. Do we have any public comments?
No public comments, Mayor.
Closing public comments, bringing you back to council for discussion and/or a motion and second. I make a motion that we do D.
Second.
D, that's the one you recommended, correct? Increase radius 600 feet, no minimum apply requirements, site plan review applications, correct? Was that your recommendation, or is it?
Oh, it's D. Second.
Still under discussion or motion
Sure,
stuff?
under discussion.
I say no. And I think C is more appropriate, that it would include all site plan review applications.
D includes all, but it's 600 instead of 500.
Right, but no minimum on properties.
Because with that radius, right, it reaches about 50 each time?
On average, it does reach about 50 each time.
In the example, okay, but it's, and I'll go back to a case that we had on Valley View, that years ago there was a property that was proposing to do a church, okay, and there were properties that would be affected that were like on 4th Street, okay, but if we would have had minimum, any properties at that time, like minimum 25 properties, they would have been contacted. But the area was so great, okay, that it was well beyond 500 feet, 600 feet. But it only hit a few homes, okay, hit a few properties. So that's my concern, that in that radius, that we still have a minimum of 40 properties contacted. And just going back to so many times, Every property in Norco is different.
So then, do you want to offer a friendly amendment to do 600 plus 40 instead of 500 plus 40?
You know, Catherine, I'm fine with that also. I think it's more of, and looking to that specific one that was over by Mountain Avenue, the more information, the more transparency, the more you can get out to the neighborhood of what's going on, I think just adds to the discussion, and more discussion between neighbors is a good thing. So,
So do you want to amend your motion, Catherine?
Isn't it your motion?
Oh, it is my motion.
Do you accept the
Fixed
friendly
radius
amendment?
600 feet.
you guys can fight.
Minimum of 40 properties and apply requirements to site plan review applications. So I've amended my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Glad you remembered.
600 feet,
600 feet,
minimum 40,
40.
site plan
Yeah.
application.
Right.
And just for the benefit of the council, this, the direction that we have now is to move forward with the code, zone code amendment. It'll go to planning commission, they'll formulate a recommendation, it'll come back to the council.
Sounds good. So,
Please vote.
Thank you.
nothing's
Bash?
coming up.
Oh, okay. Nothing? Your vote, Mayor?
My motion, I vote yes. Maybe.
Motion passes unanimously.
There it is.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Moving on to 6A, public hearing, first read, ordinance number 1126, Zone Code Amendment 2024-05, City of Norco, a city-initiated amendment to Title 18, Chapter 18, 13-A1, Agricultural Low Density Zone, and Chapter 18.68, accessory building use permits to update the requirement for open animal keeping areas with the approval of an accessory building. Director Robles.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, I'll note that you just read the exact title, so we don't need to do that later.
Great. I was getting bored.
All righty, good evening, council. This agenda item 6A is Zone Code Amendment 2024-05. And just briefly, this is a code amendment, a proposed zone code amendment to Chapter 18.13 and 18.16 with respect to updating the provisions for open animal keeping areas with the approval of an accessory building, and these requirements are reflected in our A1 zone, so which will be become part pretty much cross-referenced in the approval of an accessory building. So just to briefly, just a brief overview of PACAs and ACAs. Primary animal keeping area, or what is known as a PACA, is a deed recorded restriction on a property with metes and bounds. It's a fixed location that is required with new subdivisions. An open animal keeping area is an area that must be shown on the site plan when applying for a detached accessory building that requires a permit. So basically what this open animal keeping area acts as almost like a development standard. Somebody comes in to apply for an accessory building. We go down the list. Do they meet the setbacks? Do they meet the height? Do they still have open area? So that's what we look for with the approval of an accessory building. And it's determined based on the number of animal units that are allowed by right on the property times 576. The animal keeping area, what is known as the ACA, is not a fixed location. It could potentially move should they come back and apply for another accessory building. They just basically have to show that they still have open area to accommodate animals. So Zone Code Amendment proposes changes to the applicable to ACAs only at this time. So this is pretty much could potentially be the first of several changes to what could be, more changes to our ACA or more changes to our PACAs, but those will probably come at a later time. So in summary, this Zone Code Amendment that is before you, what it's doing is creating a sliding scale for ACA dimensions on as lots get larger. It clarifies that structures that are exempt from the requirements of a building permit are allowed in the ACA, provided that they are animal keeping shelters. So let me explain that just a little bit more. When the Planning Commission looks at the open animal keep, to see if it's an open animal keeping area, it has to be free of structures. However, if it has structures that don't require a permit and they're legit animal keeping structures, they can consider that an open animal keeping area, even if it has those, either whether it be portable stalls, for example, in the ACA. If there's other kinds of structures in there, then the commission would basically say, no, this is, give us another, show us another area that's free of structures. So basically all it is demonstrating that, you know, there is open area that could facilitate animal keeping in the future. Now, once they get the approval of the accessory building, you know, these are areas that aren't monitored because they're basically just showing that they have open areas. So, you know, property owners could use it for other purposes that doesn't require a permit. Now, if somebody were to come back and apply for a different animal keeping area, and there's different structures or that don't require a permit in that open animal keeping area, they'd have to show a different location that is open. Hopefully that kind of clarifies that point. So, and the other thing that the zone code amendment is doing is updating cross-references from the accessory building ordinance to the A1 zone, because that's where the requirements of the the ACA will be at. So just briefly to show you how the sliding scale for what's proposed for the ACA, as the lot gets bigger, so does the dimension. So for example, if it's 20,000 to 25,000, the ACA has to be, you have to show that you have an open area that's at least 30 feet on each side. And as the property gets bigger, so does the minimum dimensions that you have to show. So one of the things that the Planning Commission considered is potentially looking at the multiplier, increasing the multiplier. But what was noted that increasing the multiplier, or not necessarily the multiplier, but creating a sliding scale on the area as the lot gets bigger. But what the commission was able to observe, that as the property gets larger, so does the area, because it's dependent on the number of animal units. One of the things that the commission asked us to look at is, you know, possibly increasing the size of the multiplier from 576 to 806 square feet per animal unit. But what was determined is that that could potentially negatively affect smaller lots. Basically, they were noted that would have a greater impact on smaller lots. So that was kind of discussed, but not recommended for approval. Ultimately, the Planning Commission recommended approval. One of the concerns that did come up is still that these ACAs may not have the appropriate size for example, to have an adequate turnout area for animals. Hence there wasn't a unanimous direction on approving the zone code amendment. However, the overall consensus was this is a step in the right direction, so this could be the first of many zone code amendments that can come to the Planning Commission. So that was the recommendation was for approval, but the Planning Commission directed staff to, and this is, I honestly believe this is probably the best approach, is to form a subcommittee with our planning commissioners to address that exact concern that, you know, hey, how do we increase the PACA size without not negatively impacting the smaller lots, but that provides adequate area for turnout. So that's something that we are going to continue to look at, but with the help of a subcommittee from our Planning Commission. And we'll be looking at that in discussion purposes with our Planning Commission next week. So as I indicated, there's also some cleanup areas to cross-reference, make sure that when we look at accessory buildings, it's cross-referencing our A1 zone for the requirement of the PACA. And staff is recommending approval. And with that, I will conclude and answer any questions.
So we do have any questions. Catherine?
Yes, so clarifies that structures that are exempt from the requirements of a building permit are allowed in the ACA, provided they are animal keeping shelters. What if they are agriculture, like a greenhouse?
Well, the way the code amendment is written, if we were to look at an open animal keeping area and the commission would determine that's not a shelter, say, well, they would say, we would basically say, no, that's not adequate, for animal keeping, show us a different area on your property that's free and clear.
But you can use your ACA for ag.
Yes.
So if there's an elderly couple who can't keep horses and they want to have a little greenhouse, it doesn't need a permit, so this isn't a huge structure that couldn't be, easily taken down and moved, we would say no.
Yeah, we would basically say, no, that's not an open area, so we show us a different area that's free and clear. So, but that is, the way it's written now, it doesn't make a difference. It's just as long as it doesn't require a permit. So the city council could potentially say, no, let's just leave it as it is, and let the commission, at their discretion, determine if it's an open animal keeping area that meets the code. But the way it's proposed, it's basically saying, it has to be a true shelter for animal keeping.
That's my question.
Robin? Berwin? Greg?
So if I missed it, let me know. Whether it's a PACA or an AKA, we don't note anywhere that I've seen you can have up to 40% coverage.
Correct. In the PACA, yes, but not in the ACA, it has to be open.
Okay, then we can get to that under discussion. But should that 40% coverage on a PACA be addressed in this?
It could potentially, it could. The way it's written right now, as I indicated, there's no coverage requirements. You can't put, structures that require a permit cannot be in the ACA. You can put structures,
Right, but I'm saying on a primary animal keeping area, you can't cover more than 40% of that.
correct, with the permanent structure that requires a permit.
With permitted or even non-permitted structures. Like if I have
Yeah, I understand. what
whatever
you're saying.
size,
Yeah.
okay, but I have like 10 by 10 greenhouses, okay? Or 10 by 10 tough sheds or whatever. I can cover a PACA up to 40%
Correct, that
with
is
those,
correct.
right? So I guess it's that 40% I think should be noted somewhere if we're gonna do a zone
For the
code
ACA?
amendment.
For the ACA, or,
Well, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, but on a primary animal keeping area for now. Pardon?
Wouldn't that just be redundant? Because in the PACA requirements, it indicates that. It's just restating the same thing that the code already says about the PACA, that you
Yeah,
can't
and-
have
and
more
ag-
than 40% coverage.
yeah, and again, the code amendment is, for this evening, is only related to the ACAs, but we can definitely take note of that to when we potentially come back with other amendments to what could be, the PACA in that case.
I think on a primary animal keeping area, that should be clear.
Okay.
Whether it's under a specific plan or not, let's say, right?
Okay.
I'll save my other stuff to discussion.
Do you have any question, public comments?
Yes, Mayor. Bonnie Slager.
Hi, Bonnie.
Good evening. I've been following this through Planning Commission. There's kind of two things here. Having enough room on your property to house a horse and having enough room on your property to do something with the horse. And riding around town, I've seen teeny little, like, 1/8 acre places that have 2 10 by 10 stalls. I saw another property that the horse was tied to a tree. There wasn't any fencing at all. But, to me, those are not ideal. There should be some ability to exercise the horse on the property. Not all of us live close to a community arena, and not all of us have horses that we can just pull out and ride down the trail without working with them. So I went to AI and asked if I keep a horse at my home, how much room should the horse have to be well taken care of? Now, I realize we are Horsetown, USA, and we can use any agricultural use, but we're Horsetown, so I ask about horses. Ideally, each horse should have 1 or 2 acres of pasture, but that ain't gonna happen in Norco. The stall size should be at least 12 by 12, and there should be an exercise area because horses need regular exercise, so having a larger area where they can run and play is beneficial. If the space is limited, ensure they get daily exercise through riding or other activities, such as a round pen. A shelter should be provided. This is especially important for harsh winters or hot summers. Fencing should have safe and secure fencing to keep your horse contained and protected from hazards. So, if we can't have the 1 to 2 acres, we should have a minimum of 600 square feet per horse. The stall size should be at least 12 by 12, and there should be an area for exercise, ideally a riding arena available. So I'd like to see that so that the horses are well taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
No further comment, Mayor.
Closing public comments, bring you back for discussion. Greg?
So this is one of my concerns, and this is on the animal keeping area, that right now and the same with the PACAs, 576 square feet, 24 by 24 per animal unit, and that is the bare minimum. The way this reads to me, and let me say this, Alma, that my concerns are on properties 20,000 square feet or less, all right? I think just with the half acres now, and if we have PACAs and 5 units, the cost is almost prohibitive to go out and want to put 5 horses on a piece of property, okay? So coming back to that, so we have a 24 by 24, let's say on a small lot, 1 animal unit required, correct? Go back to the 40%. I can cover 40% of that 576 square feet, correct? Mm-hmm. So we've got a 24 by 24 pipe corral. I can put a 12 by 24 3-sided shelter with a roof in that enclosure, correct? Mm-hmm. Fire code within that 24 square foot. I can also put a 10 by 10 tough shed. I can put a 10 by 12 tough shed in that same area, correct? Mm-hmm. What do you do with your animal? And so it's, whether it's going to be on a deed restriction or not, what I'm asking for is that we increase the minimum size, the 576, another 200 and some square feet to justify that 40% coverage. So if I can cover 40%, I'm still leaving 576 for that animal. And that's where I have disagreement on with the Planning Commission on that. It's not that great of an impact to a smaller lot. And I think looking in the future, I think that would protect us further with animal keeping and agricultural uses. And I'd like to hear what the rest of my colleagues think about that.
I don't have a problem with that. Do you want to make a motion with that increase?
No, I'd like to hear from anybody on discussion. I've always contended, and this goes way back to like Norco Ridge Ranch, we were very clear. Okay, I know it's going back to PACAs, but if you want to cover that PACA in apple trees and grow fruit or whatever, it's okay, all right? And, and I think just on the smaller lots, a couple of hundred square feet, it's going to increase that potential for agriculture and animal keeping in the future.
So.
And provide
Yeah,
some
and-
additional room for a big animal to
So as I
walk.
indicated earlier, this zone code amendment is only for 2 items, and we will be discussing increasing the size with our subcommittee, and that will come back as a separate amendment where we could address everything that, has been mentioned. So right now, the zone code amendment, what it covers is increasing just the dimensions. And, of course, the issue with the type of structure that is allowed. Those are the 2 things. And making cross-references. What I indicated per the direction of the Planning Commission is that we form a subcommittee to discuss exactly what you mentioned, and that would come back as a separate zone code amendment. So, and, everything that Councilmember Newton has mentioned, that's definitely something that we can bring together with our subcommittee and formulate a recommendation to be able to increase the size adequately in a way that we also take a look at the smaller lots, so that way, maybe we cater something to where it doesn't affect them as much as, when people have more property or larger lot.
But I think it's.
But yes, it's.
And like I said, on this, the dimension size, I don't have much heartburn on.
Okay.
Whether it's 20,000 feet or less, if it's a 24, and as the property gets larger, it becomes 30 to 35 foot minimum, and, but I think we also need to look at the clearance, right, or access to, the animal keeping area, right? But it's just that one portion on the smaller lots, I just don't see it as an impact, and I'm with Bonnie. If you go around town and you see some of the conditions that some of these animals are kept in, it's like, it's sad,
And
But then
again,
there's some that are spoiled too.
Yeah,
So.
that's true. So, and again, this is, all this information I will take back, and we can come back with a separate code amendment that we've studied, at least our committee has, to be able to present a well analyzed code amendment that addresses that specifically.
Robin, anything?
Well, I would like to speak to what Catherine mentioned earlier. I realize we're Horsetown, USA, but I also am cognizant of the fact that agriculture might be one of the tools in the toolbox to help protect our lifestyle as well. And so making sure that we are able to accommodate that. In fact, I reached out to you last week about a similar concern where it was, my interpretation was it was an agricultural use. So I want to make sure that we're cognizant of that as we're making these decisions, that those types of things like a small greenhouse are something that's allowable in those open areas. I mean, I guess I need clarification from the discussion with Councilmember Newton. On the AKAs, is 40% coverage allowed in those as well?
There's no 40%, there's no coverage limit. Yes, it just has to be determined to be an open area. If there's happens to be a couple of stalls in there for animal keeping, that's fine, but it has to be open.
So there is so you can't have 40% coverage on an animal keeping area unless it is an animal structure as deemed so by Planning Commission.
And just so we make sure that we make the distinction, let's say somebody comes in and wants to build a barn as an accessory building, requires a permit. They cannot put that in the open animal keeping area.
Right.
They have to show that open animal keeping. But if the commission takes a look at, hey, this is our open animal keeping area. There's a couple of stalls that don't require a permit. They'll still consider it open animal keeping area. But as far as the coverage, there's no, and that's a good question. There's no limit as to how much of that area you can cover with those their structures. And hopefully that answers the question.
No, it
The
doesn't
unpermitted
clarify it
structures, you mean?
at all.
So there's no coverage limit to how many stalls could cover that open animal keeping area?
Because there are, so you're saying there's no limit to the amount of unpermitted, like, or not, I shouldn't say
Yeah.
unpermitted, structures that do not require a building permit that are for animal keeping.
That's correct. Yes, there's no limit.
Basically stalls.
That is correct.
So when Councilmember Newton is talking about a 40% coverage on an AKA, that is incorrect, right? Because as it stands right now, I can't put a tough shed, I cannot put, you know, 2 tough sheds or whatever on my animal keeping area, because you would look at that as a non-animal keeping item, therefore it would not be counted
That is
as
correct.
open space.
That is correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
But it says on the slide, clarifies that structures that are exempt from the requirements of a building permit are allowed in the AKA. Okay, if they're animal keeping shelters, so
they're
you
animal
still can't have a greenhouse.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
What about beehives, if they're elevated
And again,
on a
it's-
table-like structure?
When they talk about animal keeping, they're referring to the large animal keeping, like, horses and goats and sheep. Those are the kind of structures, yeah.
So in response to when you were talking about increasing the AKA, I don't see that there's a need to increase it with the restrictions that we have on the current AKA, because you can't really put anything in it except some stalls. And if we want to limit that based on how many AUs are allowed, that makes perfect sense to me, right? If you're only allowed 2 AUs, then you should have 2 stalls.
Well, Robin, we said I'm incorrect. Tell me what I'm not getting here. If I have a 24 by 24 area, okay, to keep 1 animal unit in, why couldn't I put a 10 by 10 tough shed within that area?
Because it's not an animal keeping structure.
Correct.
Sure. I mean, you're talking like roof, or do I want to store hay in it? Then is it animal keeping?
It does, no.
No, shelter. We're talking strictly shelter, animal keeping shelter.
Yeah, that's why that 40% coverage doesn't apply to the animal keeping area, because they're literally like, if it is not something that an animal is going to be in, it cannot be in that area at all. Is that correct, Alma?
Yeah, it's the way it's, my understanding, it's intended to have an area where horses can actually roam.
Okay, so
That was
then-
the basis behind it.
Let's take it back to that same 24 by 24. I can put a 12 by 24 3-sided shelter in that, right? Which is 240 feet or something, right? But I've not quite gone to half, but I've cut that turnout area basically in half with that. So I'm trying to find a factor to say, increase the 576.
But then what about our big facilities that have smaller stables in a barn, like?
Like stalls?
Yeah.
Like 12 by 12s?
Yeah.
But those horses are getting out.
They are, but that doesn't technically meet that requirement.
I guess I'd look at animal husbandry a little different like that. I think they need more space.
Yeah, that's the main thing you got to look at. The less space a horse has to move around in, the bigger chance he is going to have of getting sick. He's going to be unsound because he's not getting the exercise that he needs. So when you go to cutting the space down, and there's plenty of them in town, used to be, that horse didn't have much room to move around. 5 goats couldn't move around in there as much as they have. But the horses were lame, and it's all because they don't get the exercise and circulation and everything.
So where are we?
Planning already has one, so if everyone's in agreement with this change, we can approve the change in front of us.
We'll be back.
The change just being specifically to the dimensions on the lot size?
And the increasing AKA based on animal units allowed on the lot size, yes.
So this isn't saying no to increasing
That's correct.
the
It's not addressing it.
576?
Yeah, it's not addressing it. The ad hoc committee will be addressing that and coming back with a recommendation, because that was, something that we kind of went back and forth. We couldn't quite, but it makes sense to get two members of the planning commission to work with staff to come up with something that we can, make it work, so to speak. It makes sense. It makes total sense. I should have thought about that earlier, to be honest with you.
Then I'll move to adopt the first reading of ordinance number 1126, approving Zone Code Amendment 2024-05.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes with Councilmember Hannah voting no.
Moving on to 7, does staff have any comments? Yes.
I just want to let you know that the city clerk's office during this election season took in 2,487 ballots here at City Hall. We had a lot of really great feedback from our community, thanking us for being here, being open late on last night for the election. We kept people moving through. Myself and my Deputy Sophia, we were here till 8 o'clock, and then also were able to work with the register of voters for the counting of our ballots and the pickup. We did have one poll watcher that was from the Republican side that came in at 7:45 and watched the process. I explained the process to them. They took some pictures and review and video of what we were doing, and we're very happy with the way the city of Norco was handling the ballot in the ballot box. One other item is that we do have a vacancy in our Measure R seat that is going to be coming open next week, along with 4 youth commissioner seats. So I'll be running those recruitments next week. I have our communications manager that will help me do that next week. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Amanda?
Just an update that the Riverside County Sheriff's K-9 trials will be held in Marino Arena on Saturday, starting at 8 a.m. And then we will have our Veterans Day ceremony on Monday at our Veterans Memorial Plaza at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Set.
Actually, on behalf of the Community Services Director, Michelle Anglin, she would like to let everybody know about the Harvest Social for the seniors at the Rose Eldridge Senior Center. It's being sponsored by also the Norco Rotary Club, where they're providing a free Thanksgiving meal with all the fixings and pie. So that's next Wednesday on the 13th at, I believe, 11 a.m.
Colin?
No, nothing, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Berwin? Greg? Catherine?
Just a couple of things. I've been emailing back some staff, but just wanted to see if we could see about getting the tree trimmed on Cedar Avenue to create more lights for the street. There's a really big one right by the street lights, and there's been some concerns about kids playing on that field and the speeding. And then another resident reached out about that lives on Chestnut, and I'll forward the information to my fellow council members. But I know I was emailing the lieutenant and Director Blaze, just if we could see if there are any traffic options, what they would be, so the council could consider those. The house has been hit multiple times by cars. So thank you.
Robin? I have nothing. We are now adjourned.